Welcome to the second episode of the Portsmouth Basketball Podcast.
Welcome.
It's my hosts, me, I'm Mark.
And I'm Paul.
You had to think about that for a second, didn't you?
No, I was looking at the mixing desk.
You sure?
Yeah.
You
No
sure?
one knows it, but I'm a lot
What
closer
day
to
is
it.
it?
Hard
So
questions.
it's
Well,
it's throwing me off.
there was a third voice there.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time to introduce our special guest.
Special guest this week, and I guess first guest of the Portsmouth Basketball Podcast.
Yeah, first official
is
guest.
Steve Ware.
Yeah, Steve Ware. So,
Wow, what an honour.
Yeah, and
is it?
It is. Thank you, guys.
You sure?
Well, so far.
Well, we'll see how you feel about it.
So far.
you know what? I think we should. Let me do this properly. Yeah, now stand and cheer for your Portsmouth Fury legend, former guard number 10. Oh, sorry, number 1. Number 1. Number 00. Number 14. Stephen Ware.
That's made his day.
It's working in progress, that, isn't it?
That is a
It's
work
not
in
going to get any
progress.
better than this, so can we finish to here?
I mean, just for people listening, I'll give you a bit of background about Steve. So Steve Ware is the co-founder of the Portsmouth Fury, alongside my brother Andrew Goodell and James Air Harris. And he's played for the Fury for 30-something years until you did your shoulder in. You were very much part of the Portsmouth FC basketball youth setup in those days. I know you said you did the mopping the floor and giving the players their drinks and stuff like that. You've been around for the Portsmouth Fire with Jason Colgan, and you've now this season seen the Portsmouth Force come into National League. I'm just writing all my notes here. You're a guard. You're known as a Portsmouth Fury legend, and you're the only player in Portsmouth who has their own official song.
Yeah. Thanks to you guys.
Yeah.
How did that come about, by the way?
Idle hands, mate. Idle hands. Yeah.
I think
Too much
was
time.
it one night or two nights?
It was. That was me doing my weird DJ thing, and I was like, "Yeah, we could do this," and then you were like, "Yeah, let's do a rap over it," and then it went from "this is funny" to we took it rather seriously within 2 nights. It was done.
Someone found it.
I've actually got it on my phone, so we could finish the podcast playing that song, and it is known as the Stevie Ware song.
It is known as a Stevie Ware song.
I didn't think it was out there, but one of my mates, about 5 years ago, just sent it randomly to me. And I was like, how did you even find that? It exists everything exists on the internet, right?
Actually, yeah, no, I think we whacked it up on YouTube, Facebook, a few places, didn't we?
I've done no whacking on Facebook.
Wow. So, Steve, I mean, I think where you'd be great coming into this was last week we were talking about the history of Portsmouth basketball, and Byrne came up a lot in that conversation. So we thought we should do a whole episode where we talk about Mick, and that's where, you've got a lot of experience with Mick because you've, known him for a significant part of your life, really.
Yeah, I think I met Mick when I was, 49, and I met him probably when I was 13.
Oh, okay. And that's the old Saturday morning. So how did you get into that?
Yeah, so your brother Andrew, we've been best mates since we were like 2 or something. But we were footballers. We weren't basketball players, and I wasn't interested in basketball at all. And then I don't know how Andrew found basketball, but he came to me one day and said, "Why don't you come down?" He said, "It's really good. There's a Saturday morning thing. You'll love it." And I was like, "Don't know. I play football on the Saturdays." But he convinced me to come down one week, and I loved it. I just loved the setup. It was Mountbatten Centre then. Really nice court to play on. That's where the pro team used to play. And we'd have it for 2 hours. I think it was 10 till 12 on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, it was 10 till 12.
Yeah.
The last hour would be games.
Yeah. So I got into it quite quickly, and I think I was watching I started watching basketball and I realised it was a really exciting game to play and watch. And Mick back then had a great junior team as well, a really, really good junior team. So that was inspiring for us kids, just kind of watching them thinking, if we keep playing, we could maybe get as good as them one day. There was like some Martin Dowdle and Jason Colgan and some really good
The pathway was in front of you.
Yeah,
You could see it,
yeah, you
couldn't
could see it, yeah.
And like, what about the like the games and stuff like that? Because you guys had job roles on game days.
Yeah. So we'd get to the games really early. Pompey play their home games at the Mountbatten Centre. And we'd get there really early and we'd have the honour of mopping the sweat off of the ground. So we had these huge mops. I mean, we do lots of things, right? We kind of help out in the changing rooms and pick stuff up and clear up. But our main job really was to keep the court clean, really. Make sure the sweat people weren't slipping on the sweat, making sure that people weren't falling over and injuring themselves.
And you know what? I don't care what anyone says. When you're a kid, you're looking at that mop boy going, I wish I was him. That is a cool job to have.
Yeah, it was. We loved it. And we get into the lounge after the games. There was a players' lounge where they'd go in and have drinks and food and stuff, and we were allowed in there. So we felt like we were properly part of the setup. It made us feel like we were really involved in it, which was...
I think for context, just putting the timing that you were doing that as well, because in the previous podcast, which if you haven't listened to, you should go listen to it, but we were talking about the time frame and the timeline of Portsmouth as a basketball team. And at that point, you guys were doing it. Portsmouth were a big team. They were the top.
The best team in English basketball.
Yeah. So it's, it'd be
One
the
off,
equivalent
sure.
like nowadays of I'm a ball boy at Man United or something. You were doing that kind of level of thing.
Yeah.
So, to put it into that context for people who don't maybe appreciate the history in Portsmouth.
Pompey had a really good team. They had a really good team. I mean, we had quite a lot of good American players playing for us. And yeah, we were playing in cup finals and challenging for the league. I don't think I appreciated how good the team was and how much we would miss it when it went. It's one of the reasons I love what they're doing with the Force, because it reminds me of those days. It reminds me that Portsmouth will support basketball. People like it. People will come out and watch it. And if you've got a good team that's exciting people, it's a nice live sport to watch.
Yeah, and I think the volume of fans, the average attendance they were getting at the Mountbatten Centre, I didn't realise, but Scoop put it down as 1,500.
What is that?
For home games, and I'm not sure how you'd fit that in Mountbatten, but that's
probably
what
maxed
he's
out.
saying.
That's probably maxed out then, yeah.
But that just shows you, probably I just think you could, get to that level again with the Portsmouth Force.
100%.
You got people there who want to and would support basketball in Portsmouth.
We could get more people to Force than they can currently accommodate. I think that's 100% guaranteed. This season, capacity is going to be our problem.
And again, it's a good problem to have.
It is, yeah. But it goes also to the court. As you mentioned, Steve, Mountbatten. I used to find it a bit of a hateful court, but I appreciate it was a good court. But because it's so solid, the bounce on there is slightly different to some other courts.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing like a wooden court or some other places. The ball just bounces differently. I know it's I'm not that good, so it doesn't affect my game that badly, but it is a different feel.
I wonder what the players thought of the court, actually, because you could only host a basketball game in Portsmouth there at that time.
Yeah.
If you're talking 1,500 people, there was nowhere else in Portsmouth that you could fit
I suppose,
people in to watch it, so they had no choice, I guess.
Is that still the case?
I don't know.
It's got to be, I think.
Probably.
It's got to be. Where else is there?
Two sides of bleachers. That's probably the only other court where your capacity could go higher.
I wonder when the last time they even rolled those second bleachers out was.
For basketball, a decade ago when I was playing National League.
Probably some popcorn or something still under there.
You never know. You never know.
But that floor was brutal, and I know that because...
That's why I don't like it, because you get a nice burn on
Well, I when I was playing, Andy, I knocked myself out on that court. That's probably the...
Oh, you got submarined.
Yeah, well...
Is it?
No, I was playing against Andrew, and he faked the shot. He was underneath the basket, so he kind of pump faked, and I jumped, and he ducked even more, and I kind of rolled over his back and came down on my head.
Yep.
And Micky Byrne was there, and he said to me, He said, "You okay?" And I kind of stood up, and I sort of said, "Yeah, okay." And he said, "No, you're not. Go and sit down on the bleachers." And he pulled them out for me, and he said to me, "I think I'm going to call you Dad, or I'm going to speak to your dad when he comes and gets you." And he said my pupils are really dilated. So he said you just got to lie down. I remember as I sat down, I remember thinking, "Yeah, this doesn't feel too good actually." So my dad came, picked me up, and he took me up to QA, and I think they scanned my head to see if there was a brain in there, which there wasn't. But I think I had a bit of time off school. I think I had to.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I remember them saying, "Don't read stuff, don't watch TV. You just really need to lie down and be very still." Because I guess I had a bit of concussion, really.
Oh wow!
I remember the session you did it because you were at the south end of the court.
Yeah.
We were in the
Away
north end.
from where the reception would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah,
I
that's
remember
right,
that.
And I remember that, but I think we were all more shocked that you got high enough in your jump that you could even get near his back.
Wow!
That was more of the shock.
It did. I do remember it filtering on the other side of the curtain.
Yeah.
Someone's been taken away. It's like,
Yeah.
all right.
But
And they were like,
that's
oh,
the
it's
thing.
Steve.
That was, we brought it up before, like the whole Saturday mornings basketball was like the juniors and the seniors, and the net was like the curtain was the thing that separated, and you sort of progressed behind the curtain, so to speak.
I think that's what made the players better, though. If you're a kid 13, 14, 15, and you've got a good junior team who are 18, 19, however old those guys were, Mick at a certain point would invite you and say, "Hey, come along on a Monday night. We're playing at
The
Portsmouth
Monday
College."
night session.
Yep.
And that was a big,
it.
that was a big compliment from him, because that meant if you're joining in, because those guys weren't forgiving at all. Like there was no, "Oh, this is a young kid, we better go easy on him." It's like you sink or swim at this practice.
Yeah.
And if you're letting the team down, even if you're just scrimmaging, if you're letting the team down, they're going to let you know about it. So you pretty quickly start doing the right things and not risking stuff or trying to do any flashy one-on-one stuff. It's good for fundamentals of the game, I think, to go to a practice where you're out your depth or where you're playing against better players, because you tend to just do the good things and try and do them well.
And on the last episode, I literally said those words when you went to a Monday night, sink or swim. Like, you bring it or go home kind of thing. But so like with Mick around those Portsmouth FC times, he was pretty cool to all the kids, really. Like, you got to be part of the player community.
Yeah, he's really
suppose.
nice to us.
And
Really nice.
he was allowing you to go and see the players and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. We'd be in the locker rooms before, helping, just putting the kits out, or when after the game, just collecting them up so that they could be taken away and whoever washed them. So we got to hang out with the players. The players got to know us, which was nice. And we'd get the odd little thing from them. They'd give us a sweatband at the end of the season to say thanks, or
Delicious.
Sweatband from
Thanks.
Colin Irish.
Unused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Straight out the wrapper.
Straight out the wrapper.
Yeah.
But no, we thought we would. I mean, for us, that was as good as basketball. God, we were mixing with our idols here. It's just like being in the best locker room in the world.
Yeah.
Like there's these American players who are good, good standard for England. Obviously, they're not NBA level, but that was really cool as a kid.
Yeah.
Really cool.
I do remember Mick taking me into the changing room once, and I was going around the players, and he only told me this like 20 years later. He said you went up to every player with like a little book and a pen and said, "Can I have your photograph?" And they were saying, You mean my autograph?" And he goes, "No, I want your photograph." They all signed it, but it was only 20 years later he said, "Do you realise you were telling everyone you wanted their photograph?" And I think, Mick, in those days, he was just established as the basketball man in Portsmouth, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, his life was basketball.
Yeah.
For many years, he kept it going. He was everything ran through him. He was involved in the England setup for a while, wasn't he? He was Mr. Basketball in this region, and he was the reason a lot of people played, and why a lot of people came into the sport.
You know what? It's just something that always makes you smile, always makes me laugh. And it was at the end of the last podcast we talked this. I know you'll know what I'm talking about, but can you ever remember when it doesn't matter what the team was, if it was on Channel 4, guaranteed you'll see Mick walking past the camera at some point.
Yeah, always.
For some reason, just no matter where the camera was facing.
Yeah, he knew where the cameras were, and he knew when they were rolling.
He was brilliant, wasn't he? And like, I mean, I've written a couple of stories that I remember from the Micky Byrne days, but a lot of them are, I guess, more when I was playing. Like 10 years ago. I mean, are there any, cool Micky Byrne moments that you think of him?
I think the thing with Mick, I look back on Mick as it's a really strange relationship I think most people have with him, in that he could be the nicest guy in the world, but he was also the toughest guy in the world to you.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting when you look at the different personalities that have played for him, which is probably most people in Portsmouth. Because I don't know what you guys think. I don't think you got a coach, and some coaches say, some people need a kick up the backside to perform well. Some people need a cuddle to perform well, and I'll manage them accordingly. Definitely. I mean, Mick used to kind of have his favourites, I suppose, and he used to probably be a little bit more lenient on some. But I don't think I know anyone who played for Mick who didn't get a proper hair dryer treatment from him.
Yeah. Like example, you go up, fast break, left-handed layup, and you do it with your right hand, you're on the bench.
Yeah. Even if you made the shot.
Yeah. And even if it won the game.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what? This is one of the stories I always remember with Mick. So, Portsmouth Smugglers. So this was probably about 12 years ago. We had a guy called Lawrence Rowe playing for the Portsmouth Smugglers. And Lawrence, I remember him coming off the bench as a sub.
Yeah.
And he hit a three. Guy didn't put a hand in his face. He came down again, hit a three, just kept on going. And then they started coming out to him and he was just driving in. At half time, he had 32 points.
Wow.
32 points at half time. And he came on as a sub. And we all went into the dressing room at half time and Mick came in and it's like, Lawrence, what are you doing? And he's like, what? And he goes, no one scores over 30 points in a half in my team. It was like, what?
You're doing too well. You're playing too well. Get off.
I mean, I do think Lawrence was one of those characters that needed that kick all the time to perform well.
Yeah, well, I saw him recently. It was Micky's funeral, wasn't it? Recently,
Yeah.
we were all there, and I chatted to Lawrence a lot at the end. And he said Mick really drove him on because, he didn't play him that much. And he said, I just used to work on my game. I mean, anyone that's played against Lawrence, a really talented player, a really good defensive player, not just a good offensive player, really good defender, great hands. He would strip the ball when you just really didn't imagine he could get to it. And he said to me, I worked really hard, he said, to get in Mick's team and try and stay in Mick's team. But he said, Mick made me work so hard just for the little scraps he gave him. Yeah. Coming on as sub and doing little things. But it brought out the best in Lawrence in some ways. But even that story shows you that Mick is, he'll bring out the best in you and probably the worst in you sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it goes one way or the other. You could easily quit. He's so hard on you that sometimes you could just say, screw it, I'm quitting.
I mean, it was interesting. Mark said this when we heard about Mick passing away, and I never thought of it like this until he said it. And it was like, Mick really was like a father figure to all of you guys.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it that way until you said those words. And it was so many nice things I think he did for us. Like, we had the to the hoop camp that lasted every year. So it was being run by Colin and Steve Nelson. I can't remember if Alan Cunningham went there. Did he?
Yeah, I think so.
And I don't know what they would charge, but we didn't have loads of money, so it could be that we didn't have enough to go on the camp, and you'd go, don't worry about it, just give me 50 quid, and you can go on the camp. I remember another time he took us to watch the Harlem Globetrotters play, and again I was a kid, didn't even think about it, and we're courtside, front row courtside seats watching the Harlem Globetrotters play in a packed out arena, and didn't even think about it that we didn't pay a penny for that. It was only again years and years later. My mum said to me, he didn't charge us anything for that. He took all you kids there, took the Harlem Globetrotters, watched them, took you all back, didn't charge you a penny.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was his generous side. He could be really generous.
Yeah, he took us to France, which we played in the tournament when we were 15 or something, maybe. And of course, I played at the same time as his son Alex, so we sort of played together. And that was a great trip. He took us all over to France. We stayed in different houses because we weren't staying together, so we had to go and stay with, I guess, families that just said we'll put an English kid up for a night or two that's staying over. And drove us around. We played in the tournament, came home, dropped us all back off at our houses. The amount of time he dedicated to basketball over the years. It's not just the money, is it? It's the time he put into it as well, and the effort he put into. I mean, Paul, you know what it's like to try and run things. There's so much stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people don't think about, like there's the scheduling and getting the refs and getting the courts sorted and getting the table officials sorted and getting the insurance done and getting like da before you've even bounced the ball.
There's that level of structure and not just, like you said, dedication, but the structure that you put around the teams. And this is how you play, and this is what you have to do, and this is what you have to do to get on the team.
Yeah.
And this is what if you do, you'll get off the team.
Yeah.
But it was that level of structure that was, as you were saying about like a father figure, it was that grounding level of, if you do this, you succeed, learn these fundamentals, do things this way, and I can't take you places. But to echo what you're saying, it's just a bigger picture than 10 till 12 on a Saturday morning.
Oh yeah. I didn't really realise this till we were at his funeral, and it just suddenly hit me. So we went to the funeral, and the coffin's there, and there was a basketball on top.
Yeah.
And it suddenly hit me because Mick's everywhere. Like, he's omnipresent. And when you're a kid, if you've known someone 35 years, they're just always around, right? You go to a basketball event, and then Mick walks in. Of course he does. Like, you go down somewhere on a Wednesday night and people playing basketball. Mick walks in, and
we would have a semi-final. He'd walk in.
Yeah, like he's everywhere, and you think he's going to live forever, and you think he's always going to be there, and now he's not, and it hit me really hard seeing his coffin, thinking that is it.
Yeah.
And I was very grateful to see him actually when the Fury were playing on that. On May the 14th was the last time I saw him.
Cup game, yeah.
Cup game, yeah. And two really lovely things about that. So, one, I hadn't seen him for quite a while, and he came in and he did look frail. He was on his crutches, and he came in and he sat in the chair. And I was sitting up watching the game in the stands, and I went down to see him. My last memories of Mick are really nice because he looked over, and when he saw it was me, he had a big smile on his face. And he's like, Steve. And I said, hey, Mick, how are you? And we were chatting. And then he said to me after a while, I said, how are you, mate? He's like, yeah, not too good. And towards the end, he said, Steve, I think this might be the last time I see you. Wow. And I said, don't say that, mate. Don't say that. But in the back of my mind, I also thought, do you know what? He might be right. So you need to say something to him now that you would have wished you said to him when he was alive. If he does die, do you know when people die and you sort of go, I never really told him how much he meant to me.
Yeah.
I would never really. I wish I could give him one last hug. I wish I could. And so I said to him, Mick, thanks for everything you did for us. Thanks for everything you did for us as kids. You were basketball in this city for years. You are basketball in this city. Thank you so much from all of us. Like I'm sure we got on your nerves sometimes and caused you a problem, but we appreciate you. And it was nice to be able to say that because literally. It was a lot. It was the last thing I said to him.
It was like 2 weeks later, wasn't it? Yeah. 2 weeks later. Yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience on that same day where, the Fury were losing by, I think it was 14 points, and I saw Mick walk in, and he watched a quarter. He watched a quarter, and we were down by 14 points, and it got to half time, and I just went straight over to him and went, Mick, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do? And, he gave me a bit of advice, and we went back, initiated what he'd told me. Within 4 minutes, it was a tied game.
Yeah.
We didn't go on to win the game, but I just looked, that was a really nice shared moment. It was like, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Even on crutches, he says one thing and 4 minutes later, bam, that's the impact you've had. And yeah, similar in a way, I was like, you know, it was a nice exchange to say goodbye, because he was like, you know, yeah, good out. You can't win them all. You know, you tried it. You just got to try different things sometimes. You did all right. And it was like, cheers, Mick. I really appreciate that. You know, good luck with your games. You know, see you later. And gave him a hug, and that was it, kind of thing. But
and I got to see a really nice side of him, because I used to do, before COVID, I used to do the table for Fury a bit.
oh yeah,
And this is classic Mick, right? So Mick, every single home game, he would help me. He would do the table, right? I'd do the book, and he'd do the scoreboard, or whatever, or the other way around. And I used to love it. I used to love it. I'm sure we'd have a good laugh, and Mick would be like just chatting to me and making me laugh during the game, and pulling his hair out sometimes watching. But every week he'd come down and look at Andrew and go, "Good, where's your table officials?
yeah, he would.
Where's your table
yeah.
officials?" And I'd be like, "Mick, aren't we doing it?" No. Mick would be like, "No, I'm going up to the bar. I'm not." And then he'd make you work for it every time. And then of course,
you'd have to ask him nicely.
yeah. And then I was like, "Should I go and get your chair, Mick? And can we get you a drink?" And but yeah, he kind of keep you on your toes. And I think that stemmed all the way back from my first recollection of Mick is just doing fundamentals. Like when you go to a basketball practice with him, it's fundamentals. Not just let's scrimmage for 2 hours. You know, let's see who can do the most highlight reel plays. It's like, we can do the basics, guys. This is going to be dribbling. This is going to be passing. This is going to be defending, boxing out, running plays, learning the game properly. And that's something he brought. I think you talked about structure earlier. He really brought structure for young people, because he would teach you first and foremost fundamentals.
Yep.
And fundamentals are really important. Really important.
Totally.
Beef, balance, eyes, elbow, follow through.
Wow. Oh, you should come down.
Wow.
They'll take you as a coach. 100%.
Listen, you're not roofing me.
You'll
out.
have a
beef.
joke within
Stop
a week.
it.
Bring your beef to practice.
Yeah, I'll be the one they'll be crying about. Like, right, go do a suicide again. Off you go. I didn't like that shot. Go do it again.
Yeah, and
But that's what he would do. It was the tough love, wasn't it? It was the you got to hit these. You got to keep doing this. You got to. We know you're here to play the game. We know you're here to do. We've got 2 hours, and from like 10 to 11, you're running the 5-man drill. You're running the shooting drill. You're doing dribbling. You're doing the one I used to like was the one I used to like you doing was the taking the charge drill, where you be doing like quick feet on the floor, and then when he made a noise or something, you had to jump backwards and go on the floor, like
I
taking
still do
a charge.
that now. When I do that drill, I just say to the kids, "Guys, we're going to do a drill now.
Yeah,
This is
the
what the
Luca
England
flop.
manager taught me." And they all go, "Wow!" They all look up when you say that.
It's the Luca flop, isn't it?
You know, when I in my very first National League game, I remember, you know, really nervous. It was an away game, big crowd. There's probably, I don't know, 150, 200 people there. I was really nervous, and you know, Mick subbed me in, and he called a timeout really quick after I was in the game, and we came into the huddle, and he was like, "Good Al, you're not in this team for your pretty face. That's their best player. Take him out." I was like, "What?" Okay. So very next play, I went to take a charge, and this guy came round, and again, this is Mick told me to do something, and I got very enthusiastic about it, and the guy went down. He was injured. He hurt his shoulder or something, and I can clearly visualize it now, just looking over at that time, just seeing a little nod by Mick, like, "Yeah, good,
Well done.
Job done.
good. You can play for the next. You can play for the rest of the
You're
season."
allowed on the bench now.
Yeah. But you know, Mick was I don't know, fierce or ferocious competitor.
Oh,
Really,
couldn't
wasn't he?
lose. Could not lose.
Absolutely ferocious.
I always enjoyed the games that we played against the Navy as the Fury, because then Mick we'd see a different side of him sometimes.
Yeah, we I don't think we got one up on mixed teams very often. We
No.
did do it. You know what? The one I really remember was local league, Fury versus Smugglers, quarterfinals of the Cup. I think we were losing by about 20 points, and I think it was half time. Mick probably washed his hands, thought, "Right, this is done." He went up to the bar. He came down at the end of the third quarter, and we were up by 14 points.
Wow.
And I always remember it was the one time, like in more recent times, where we beat the Smugglers. And I always look back and went, but Mick went to the bar for that one quarter where we had that huge 30-point deficit turnaround. Mick was at the bar.
Pop to the bar.
Yeah, he would have called timeout, or he would have done change the defense.
Yeah. He wouldn't have allowed that.
Just pop to the bar.
Yeah.
I think his fierce competition was his greatest asset and his biggest. What's the right word? Weakness, maybe. Yeah. Because, I mean, the reason we set up the Fury, I think, was because certainly the reason I wanted to set up a separate team is because I felt like I couldn't win for Mick after a while. Like I couldn't, no matter what I did, wasn't going to be good enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I realised obviously like I was never going to. Basketball was only ever going to be fun for me, so I wanted it to be fun. I wanted to enjoy it, and I thought if I'm going to games, and I'm nervous, and I'm not going to enjoy playing, and then I'm not that interested. And so when we set the Fury up, it became ours. I mean, we're still under Mick, and he did a lot for us, but it became our own team.
Oh, that's interesting. Is that why you never played National League? Because, I mean, I regularly bring up your name when I talk about players who never played National League, but were arguably the best players in Portsmouth around at the time. And I always look at you as one of those names that I say to people, say Steve Ware was literally one of the best guards in Portsmouth who didn't play National League.
Yeah.
And was it the fun side of that you just wanted to keep it like that? Because as soon as you go National League, it gets very serious.
Yeah. I was serious about playing for the Fury, and I wanted to win, and we did everything to win. But it's an interesting question. Yeah, it probably was. It probably was the... I don't want to... Night before a game, I don't want to be dreading the game. And those people that hate their job, it comes to Sunday night, and they're like, oh my God, I've got work tomorrow.
Yeah.
That Sunday night feeling.
Yeah.
Do you think it was because you were doing it for yourself and not for someone else?
What? Playing for the Fury, I was doing it for myself.
You're carving your own path in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and Andy and I were in control of our own destinies then, I suppose.
Own team practices and stuff as well.
Mick did try to involve himself where he could.
He did coach the Fury, didn't he?
Yeah. There was no big falling out. It was just kind of we set up our own thing, and I mean Alex sort of had his own team as well.
Yeah, so from what I remember, the first you, Andrew, and James Harris set up the Fury.
Yeah, at your mum's dining table. Yeah,
and it was called the New Power Cram Generation.
MPG,
and then and then it turned from that into the Portsmouth Force, and then Alex started a Portsmouth Force, and that's where Mick was like he would be sometimes when Alex is Portsmouth Force, you can't be Portsmouth Force anymore, and that's where the Fury.
Yeah, so we were just searching for team names then because we couldn't have Force. We wanted Force.
And that's where it came from.
Yeah, I think we found a logo of a Canadian team or something.
Okay, and then Fury was born.
Like, that's good. I'll take that.
Yeah, and it went from there. Just looking back, I know you were talking about Mick's, just desire to win everything. I know there's a story about, I don't know where you were. You were traveling away. And you lost. Tell that story.
There's several stories. I think everyone that played for Mick has got one of these stories where you give up your Saturday or whatever day it was and travel to outskirts of London or wherever we're playing. And if we didn't play well, Mick could let you know about it. I can remember a couple of times we played, according to him, obviously. We played so badly that he was just right. I won't use the words he used, but it was basically you boys are making your own way home. And so we thought he was joking, right? So he says this. He's like, I'm going basically.
He would say a lot of flippant comments, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and he's like, so he's basically said to us in so many words, I'm off, and I'm taking the minibus with me. And good luck to you guys getting home. And we're 50 miles from home, wherever it was. And so we sort of laughed a little bit, I think, and went in and got changed and came out and showered, and went out to the car park, and there's no van. And so we're all looking around like, how are we actually going to get home? Because we're too young. No one's got cars. Like luckily, he never. We were chatting about this to Ian McAvoy actually, and we were laughing and saying, was there a time where he actually didn't come back? Because normally he'd go like around a big A road or something that takes like 45 minutes, and eventually you just see the van pull up, and you know you're getting in that van, and you are not speaking, and you are shutting the hell up the entire journey, and Mick would just sit there with a stone face, and he'd come back to get you, but it's just like, hear a pin drop in that van on the way.
Do you reckon he would just go to McDonald's or say, have McDonald's and then come back?
Probably.
You know what? The one thing I remember National League, it was I really enjoyed the away games. I loved the away games, and what I started to do, because I mean we were having a pretty successful. We had a couple of really successful seasons, and what I would do is just take one of those big food cooler boxes, jam it with ice, and I'd put a 4-pack of beer in there. Now I remember Steve Davison was playing, and he jumped on this train really quick. So he would bring a 4-pack, put it in there. We'd play the game, and then these beers were as cold as ice, because they'd been in there for 4, 5 hours, 6 hours. And you would travel home on the way bus. You'd open your beers up, and you'd have a few drinks after the game. And half the team were doing this. Exactly that. The problem was when you lost. So, we were lucky. We didn't lose too many games. But when we did, Mick would get in that bus, he would slam that door and go, "Good hell, no one's having any of that beer," or something like that. And you'd be like, "Yeah, no worries, Mick. We don't deserve it. We don't deserve it." And you'd be like,
I've already thrown it away, Mick. I agree with you. Yeah.
And it would be quite funny. We'd leave it maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then you would just hear a
and then you see Mick's eyes in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, and you'd have me and Steve like near the back of the bus, like holding the beer cans quite low down, and then 5 minutes later,
No school children.
But it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. I do remember it used to be after about an hour, he'd be all right. Yeah. But he was a fierce competitor, and really didn't want to lose.
Yeah, he took it personally.
He did, and he mellowed a bit with age, but not that much.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm glad that we kept in touch, because he was 81, I think, when he died. So we got to see him. I was trying to work this out. So he was probably 50, late 40s maybe when I first met him. And it was nice to keep in touch with him as an older guy, because he did mellow a bit, and he'd come to our Christmas. We'd always invite him to our Fury Christmas dinners and pay for his meal, which he really appreciated. And we'd sit and do the table for the Fury and have a good laugh. And I really did see a different side to him then.
Yeah.
The softer side, the nice guy, the guy that would do anything for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, definitely, as he got older, there was a few times he would. I can't think of an example, but he would give you a bit of advice. Paul, why don't you try doing this? And you think, oh wow, okay, yeah, brilliant, thanks, mate. When you're competing against him, he's never gonna do that. But you know what? I probably would go as far to say, I reckon the Portsmouth Fury are probably the only team that was taking him out at Christmas and for all our parties. Every time we won the league, we went out and we'd celebrate and stuff like that. He was there with us, wasn't he?
Yeah, we always appreciated him.
We gave Mick the respect he deserved.
Yeah,
because he did deserve respect.
Sure.
Whether he was a tyrant, which he could be, if you're playing for him or against him, but he shared his love of the game fundamentally, didn't he?
Yeah.
And whether it was the structure, the rules, how you play, who's reffing, how the ref's calling it, if that's a foul, if it's not, if he's running the bench or if he's going to run the table, it doesn't matter what he was doing. He had his fingers in all the pies, and not just in Portsmouth, but in lots of the league all round in the south, that he didn't knowing where everything was going. but fundamentally he just wanted to share that passion with everyone, and inject that into everyone, which I think he did with a lot of you guys in particular, because of the time he spent with him, and he spent more time with you guys than a lot of the other teams.
Yeah, I just remember the funny story just coming in my head. We were playing. I can't remember who we were playing, but I was in the team. Remember, Chalky was playing.
Oh, were they the Embers? Or
No, he was playing. So Chalky must have played with us for Mick for a little while.
Wasn't the Kestrels?
Wasn't the Kestrels?
Oh, God, the bloody Kestrels! He's always trying to throw their name into it.
They made it into this podcast. Anyway, we're playing this game. This summed up Mick. So Chalky, for people that don't know, a really nice guy. He's like a really cool guy. Not that competitive, I would probably describe him as. Not ultra competitive. Not as competitive as Mick, certainly by a long way. This is the difference between Mick's competition levels and Chalky's competition levels. We're playing in a game. Chalky's D'ing this guy up. This guy hits this unbelievable off balance, falling out of bounds 3 with the shot clock expiring. Somehow gets it up over Chalky's outstretched arms. Chalky turns around, shot loops up, it falls through, swishes. Unbelievable shot. And Chalky turned around and high-fived the guy like, unbelievable.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, you know what's coming. You know what's coming. So he high-fives the opponent who's just hit a huge three. It wasn't to win the game, it's just in regular play. It was a big shot. I mean, everyone on the bench is like, oh, whoa. So Chalky high-fives this guy, Mick. Bang, he's up off the bench. Again, we won't family show, won't use the words he used. Let's just say Chalky was warming the pine the entire rest of that game.
Wow.
That's like the ultimate thing to not do on a court you're playing for Mick, is to like congratulate.
What do you reckon Mick's quickest sub ever was? There's got to be someone who he's like, get in the game.
Oh, I saw that a few times.
And they came in, did something, and he's like, get out.
No, I've seen that a few times. Like you go in for Mick and you miss a shot, miss a second shot. You have 2 big mistakes. Bam, bench for at least half. At least half. You know what? I don't want to say worked out Mick's subs, but what I would do is, National League I never really started, but I would make myself as close to Mick as humanly possible on that side of the bench. So if you're right down the end of the bench, he's not looking at you. So I'd try to put myself as close to him as humanly possible. And then when there was a big mistake or something huge happened, I'd be vocal. Come on, back door, watch out for this, come on. And I'd do that. And he would always look and just go, good out, get in. Because he saw someone who's going, he's up for it, and get him in. I mean, I remember especially some of the Portsmouth Southampton games we played, or Solent games. I think some of the Portsmouth boys, he played a lot more. I remember in those games, I played a lot more, I think, because I was a Portsmouth boy and I was going to put my body on the line or go all out the whole game. But that I always sat as close to Mick and try to be vocal, and then you'll get in the game.
That's a good way to do it. I got you in.
And you know what? I do see players still now, even National League, they sit right down the end of the bench.
Yeah.
And they're unenthusiastic, and I'm like, well, you're not going to come in. Like, you want to be sat there like I'm like
you want to be frothing
at the mouth.
We're going to make a difference here. Yeah.
And the coach is going to look at that and go, get him in, get him in.
It is a weird thing though, isn't it? Because there must have been things that it's not just the direct things that having that basketball experience and that he's taught you guys. There's lots of indirect lessons.
Oh yeah.
Such as the whole, if you perform, you stay in. If you don't, you don't. It's a harsh, but it is a harsh life lesson. But it's one that these days people like a big cuddle and everyone wants to be told, everyone gets a medal. It's like, no, the first gets a medal, second and third, they get not as good medals, and everyone else, thanks for turning up, cheers. Like it's like an Olympics, isn't it? It's a reality. You don't need the cuddling and the sugar coating, but that's a great life lesson for with coaching the kids and then coming through all the way to an adult. You go, sometimes you're just not going to get.
Well, that was a difference between us and the Fury and a team that Mick would coach. So when Mick would coach a team, he's coaching you to win the game. He's not coaching you to give everyone a nice time. Oh, was little Johnny at the end there? Has he had enough minutes? Oh, he hasn't. Let's get him in for 3 minutes and let's do. Mick's there like, we're winning here. If I play 5 players and win, and that's what it takes. That's what it takes. Whereas when we formed our own team, and you see a lot more social teams, they're one of the hardest jobs the coaches has is, how am I going to make this entire bench happy? Because I've got 12 people here. Yeah. Everybody wants to play. I'm going to try and give people minutes. Mick never had that. Mick was coaching really like a professional.
Yeah.
You know, a Premier League coach isn't playing anyone on anything other than merit. And like, are you going to add to this team? Is this the very best team we can put out in this moment against this opposition? The answer is yes, you're playing. If the answer is not, you're not playing.
Yeah. And I do think Mick took the psychological aspect of the game to a whole nother level. So I remember playing with him before, and he would turn up to you. You know, you've just travelled 3 hours to play a team, and he would turn around to you and go, "You're probably not going to get on today, but if you do, I want you to stop that guy from scoring. If he doesn't score, you'll stay in the game." And so again, you'd be sitting there looking at this guy you're taking on, going, there's no way you are scoring. And it'd just be in your head. And, you know, or he would say something like, "You're not playing today, probably, but you're going to be my main guy next time." And you go, "Okay, he really wants me to play here." And you'd be mentally building yourself up like this game. And he goes, "Right, this is your time to shine." And, you know, I've said this to you before.
Do you think he did it differently with different people as well? Like,
yeah,
kind
definitely.
of read the room, like
definitely,
because you're super competitive. Like, it's fair to say you'll throw the baby out with the bathwater if you.
And he was taking my competitiveness and focusing it on one person.
Donkey saw the carrot.
That's who you got to go up against. So yeah, 100%. But yeah, I think Mick, it was so clever. There was this undertone. There's another game, like I said to you before, another game being played in the game, and this psychological thing. You'd say one thing to a referee.
Oh yeah,
one thing, and the entire game changes. And I remember when I started getting into coaching, and I said to Mick, "Can you come and sit with me on the bench and help me out?" And I never remember this. It was strange at the time, and all the fouls were going against the Fury. Everything was foul, Fury, like all itty bitty fouls, and the other team had nothing. And it got to a certain point, and he said, "Paul, you need to stand up, use some colourful language to the referee, and highlight to everyone in the room that he's called 15 fouls on the Fury and 1 foul on the other team. You need to make that very clear to the entire room. Get up now." So I stood up, "Ref, what the hell's going on?" All the colourful language, 15 fouls, 1 foul here, and then he said, "You're going to get." He goes, "You keep going until you get a technical foul." Got the tee, and as soon as I got the tee, he goes, "Sit down and shut up."
Yeah.
I sat down, shut up. All of a sudden, the other end, the other, and he goes, "Those refs are now reffing the game, going, hang on, have I really called 15 fouls on one team? That's not right." And they're questioning themselves. And whilst they're questioning themselves, I'm not sure what effect it's having, but
a big effect.
Yeah,
because you've not only told the ref, you haven't gone quietly during a timeout and said, "Ref, we're keeping track of this. Come on, man. Like, it's 15 to 4, whatever the stats are." You've announced to the entire gym that they've made a mistake, that they're calling this in a bad way.
Yeah,
so that puts a lot of psychological pressure on them to say, "Wow, are we calling this even or not?"
Unconscious bias.
Yeah, absolutely. You see that in the NBA. You'll see at a certain point a coach will, even someone like Steve Kerr, that's not a really, or Brad Stevens, people that aren't really, aggressive people, so to speak. There's a time and a place to get a tee. There's a time and a place to get ejected even.
Yeah.
Sports psychology, you do a whole podcast on that. That's huge.
Yeah, I'd seen Mick get ejected quite a few times, and I think the dynamic between him and Alex was always, I would say it was either entertaining or embarrassing in the National League, because they would be, bah, 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 bah. "Oh, come on, Dad," and he'd be back at Alex, and it was just like, and this is from the first 10 seconds of the game, and it was either hugely entertaining to listen to it, or just a bit embarrassing. You'd be like, "Oh, come on, get on with it." But yeah.
So I've also seen Mick eject you quite a few times as well.
Oh, Oh, that's quite a regular thing.
Saturday morning, at least at some point.
Well, there was a reason behind that. So the reason behind that was there was an arcade machine, like a Space Invader game, up by the bar, and I worked out if you turned it off at the power and turned it back on, you got 3 free credits. So I thought, well, if I misbehave in the first bit when they're doing the fundamentals, I go up and play Space Invaders for an hour with all these free credits, and then I come back and then just play in the games. That
was a temporary ejection, was it?
Yeah, you usually came back.
Most of the time, you got to come back because Mick could do sometimes like a not like a lunch break, but kind of like a little 5-minute break between the sessions.
Oh, and you come back in there.
And then he'd slink back in.
I do remember he didn't let me play in the games a couple of times, and then I think I was like, oh God, I can't, got to stop misbehaving a bit. But that's why I just want to go and play Space Invaders. But you know what? Talking about Mick's fierceness, there is another story about Mick which I think shows his fairness. I'm not going to name the referee, but I remember there was, this was high level. So this was local league. This was Portsmouth Smugglers versus the Bournemouth Bears. And were you watching it with me?
Don't know.
There's a few of us up top. So this was whoever, right at the end of the season, whoever won the game won the league. So it was, league decider. And Bournemouth were winning by 3 points with like 10 seconds left. And Smugglers bought the ball, 3, 2, 1. Buzzer goes off. As the buzzer goes off, I remember the guy bouncing it, catching it, and then shooting, and it goes in. But everyone was like, game's over, Bournemouth won. Everyone's shaking hands. And I'm not going to say the referee's name, but the referee blew the whistle and went, 3 points, overtime.
Wow.
And it just kicked off. Did you watch that? Were you there for that?
I think I was.
I think maybe it was Andrew. But it absolutely kicked off because it was like no one in the gym thought it was going into overtime. And Bournemouth were like, we have been trying to beat Portsmouth in the league for 10 years and we've just done it, and now you're going to take it away from us and take us into overtime. And I remember Mick turned around and went, we're not playing overtime.
Did he?
We're not playing overtime, they won. And I think it upset the ref at the time because they were like, it's... you're going against my decision. He was like, no. He goes, there's no way. We're not going into overtime. You've won the league. And he went over, shook the guy's hand. He goes, you finally beat us. Well done.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Bournemouth won the league. They came second. And with his fierceness, you would have thought he would have gone, yeah, we'll take that. But on that, I remember on that day, he was just like, no, if he's going to win, he's going to win fair.
Yeah, I think he'd bend the rules. I don't think he would never cheat to win. I don't think he'd ever want to.
He'd win the white way.
Yeah, I mean, he'd sail close to the wind.
Make life a bit difficult for you.
Yeah, and he'd do everything he could to, get the refs to make some favourable calls for him and everything else. But, yeah, I don't think Mick would want to think something was blatantly wrong. And
I mean, in a way, I always think with, like, the Portsmouth Force stuff, we talked about it in one of the other early podcasts about making an atmosphere and making an ambience, and how one of the reasons that some of the refs originally, when you started doing some of that, was they said, well, it could be a home court advantage. And I always sit there back and think, well, that's the sort of thing Mick would love, because it's like, oh, any advantage you can get over the opposition, you 100% take that.
Oh,
you can get the crowd behind you more. If you're playing in some, I think it was not Southampton, but it was one of the universities, and they had bleachers at the top. It might have been Bournemouth. And they've got like a bleacher at the top that you play a game in.
That was Southampton University.
Yes. At any time you get, and they'd have people turn up because they want the students to go. Whereas home games, you wouldn't get as many. You think any time you can get people there and create a vibe and stuff.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
It's huge. And so again, shouting, if you're shouting at the ref, or he causing a storm, and his reputation preceded him. So then after a while, he mellowed out with age, but also he didn't have to put the show on because it's like, okay, Mick's going to come in.
Yeah.
At some point, he's getting out of that chair. That's guaranteed. At some point, he's getting out of that chair.
Yeah, and from a referee perspective, when
Yep.
I started getting into reffing and doing the local teams, smugglers were obviously part of that, and it was really interesting. I'd turn up, and the referees would come together at the start of the game. We'd be talking, and the referees straight away they're all talking. Okay, Mixon be shouting, and don't let him wind you up to give him a tee. And it's like, what? Like he was in their heads before the game's even started.
Alex Ferguson, wasn't he? Really?
He was the basketball equivalent of Alex Ferguson. Yeah. Just going back to the Portsmouth FC basketball, you were saying, it was just a great environment and stuff like that. It was the, Manchester United moment for Portsmouth in basketball, wasn't it? We won the top division 2 years in a row. And then during that time, you were mopping up sweat and getting a sweatband for it.
Yeah, free sweatbands.
It was worth every ounce of sweat I mopped up.
Complimentary moisture
But
included.
the equivalent is in basketball, like if you were in America, LeBron James, there you go, sweat boy.
Mm.
Oh,
There's my headband.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's that's something that the Force are aspire to, really now, isn't it? To get back to that sort of state where you've got all the top teams playing.
Yeah.
Will they do that? How long would it take to do something like that?
To get to BBL,
Yeah.
to get to BBL, you need somewhere where you can get 1,000 people capacity. So if you could do that overnight and go into the BBL if you've got the funding and all of that, that's I don't think it's difficult to do it. It's not like a promotion thing.
So you told me a few years ago, if you won that, I think it was 106 million or something on a Euro Millions, you said,
100%.
you said, how much would it be to build a basketball court?
Basketball, like little mini arena. You know what? If they're saying 1,000, I'd say, right, okay, let's get 3,000, 4,000 and stuff, and maybe have it as like an
Ice
indoor
hockey.
music arena as well, or something like that. That would be my plan.
Just got to buy those tickets, mate.
Oh no, it is just automatically rolling all the time. But you can. That is what is happening.
He's in
if
it
I
to
win the
it.
Euros.
That's
If I win the Euros, that is happening. The only question
Wow.
mark there
There it is.
is one
Exclusive.
question mark.
Rob's written that down already. Mr. Chairman's written that down already.
There's a lot of my future
What are you going to call the arena? The Paul Goodale Arena?
PG Waterhouse.
No, I thought about this actually. No, I've done so much. I'd call it the Dockyard in Portsmouth. The Dockyard.
The Dockyard. I'm not sure I like that.
Does that
I
mean
like that.
everyone's going to be a docker who goes there?
I don't know.
Dockers are in.
The Dockyard. Or the Scrapyard. Something like that. The Shipyard. You want it to
We
be
need-
the
we need to-
garden, don't you?
We need to work on this name, I think.
Look, if I win the Euros, you boys can come in and be part of the marketing team, and we'll work it all out
I'm
then.
not going to lie. If I see an advert saying, would you like to come to the Dockyard? It's a hard pass.
Or the beer garden. Going to the beer garden.
We have VIP seats there.
Yeah,
There-
that'd be
there's a
nice.
VIP section.
Yeah, like a swimming pool in there for the players,
Whoa.
gym,
Swimming pool, Steve.
Nice.
everything.
What would you go? What are you going to go? I'm going to go for watch a basketball game. I'm going to go for a swim afterwards.
No. This is just for the players and coaching staff. You can only get into the
Oh,
swimming
so
pool.
that's the training facility as well.
Yeah, training facility. And
Taking
you
it
almost want
seriously.
another court alongside it for training and stuff like that.
Could we have a Mick Byrne memorial bar?
Look, I put so much
The
thought
Mickey
into
Byrne
this.
bar.
No,
Statue
as,
outside, surely.
as you walk in, do you know when you get like the Muriel stuffs on the wall, like the different things?
Yeah.
You would have like Micky Byrne, Steve Ware, Andrew.
Yeah.
All the old original Fury players, Colin Irish. You have like as you walk in, you see them all going into the thing. But my only question mark would be,
Into the Dockyard.
would you keep it the Portsmouth Force or would you change the name?
Oh, that's a tough one for Steve.
If I've won the Euros and I'm investing a lot of money, I'd debate making it the Fury, just because of my history with
Would
the
you?
Fury.
Wow, really?
Wow.
Yeah, that's the only thing. There's a coach who's going to come on there called Tom Milner.
Yep.
And Tom, he's absolute legend, has got a Portsmouth Force tattoo
Really?
on his arm. Get him to show it to you.
Yep.
He's got an actual and I said to him when I saw it, I was like, if I win the Euros, we're going into the BBL, and I might call it the Portsmouth Fury. That kind of conflicts with your tattoo. I think it's a risk he'll take. A lot of my future plans rely on this Euros win, but we'll see. We'll see if it pans out.
I mean, if you're having all these good players going up like a staircase and that, you have any? Is there a limit to how many players you have going on this
No, it's like a
memorial
wall, you know, where like it's like a
Yeah.
like part of the wall, like a posters merging into
So
the
it
others.
sounds good. I'm invested.
And I was
I'm
going to
invested in
have
the stadium, Steve.
And I was going to have in the arena, I was going to have like hanging down a massive banner with like Steve playing, and it just says, Ware, 14. No, and like all the old Fury players. I put a lot of thought into this.
Wow.
All we need now is 100 million quid.
Just 100 million. Is it 100 million to build a stadium? Really?
I don't know. I don't know how much it'd be, but we'll see.
Do you have any Kestrel players up there?
So you always, you know what? I was
You can
thinking
cut
about
that out,
this
can you?
because you were talking about
Well, no, but
Solent
did Mick have?
Kestrels.
Did
He
Mick
loves
have
Solent Kestrels. He brings them up every bloody week.
I'm always. When we're talking about Mickey today, but like, did he have a rivalry? Was there a rival coach? Or was there a rival team? Or was there anyone in particular you think there's someone that Mick's like we got to beat them no matter what? Because I know he was like across the board competitive, but I wonder if Mick ever had a nemesis. I certainly don't.
I think local league would have to be Bournemouth Bears. They were always competing with him, and they were a good team. They'd been playing with each other for a long time. They were a really good team. They were always, I don't know, when you're on top, I think, is it a bit difficult to have a nemesis when you're on top all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, what about coach-wise then?
Kingston, maybe, Steve Bontrago and all that.
Yeah, but Mick wasn't the coach of that team, was it? That was Dan Lloyd. Dan Lloyd was the Portsmouth coach when we were playing Kevin Cadle and the Kingston teams.
Kevin Cadle.
Yeah. People might have seen him on... I don't know, is he still doing Sky stuff?
I don't know.
He was doing the NFL, I think, wasn't he?
I'll have a look. I used to wheel them out, didn't they? Wheel them out or get someone phoned up John Amici a couple of times. And oh, you played in the NBA, didn't you? Yeah, it just wasn't very good. But
So, Steve, like, just signing off on the legend that is, you know, Mick Byrne. What's your lasting memory or favourite memory?
I mean, that's a hard question.
I suppose
Just
it's
gratitude, I guess.
Yeah.
Grateful. He was a big part of our lives, our prime years, sporting years. And you know what? Without him, I don't know what would have happened, because would basketball have evolved like it had? Probably not. Someone else would have had to step up and do it.
Not in Portsmouth.
Yeah. So that's why I was so grateful to be able to say thank you to him before he went, because I think we all owe him a huge debt of gratitude
Yeah.
for what he did. You know, he did. He brought us together so many good nights, so many laughs at training, at games, at Portsmouth games, just watching things, travelling with him, even travelling abroad with him. Yeah, thanks for the memories is probably really.
He did have, it didn't happen loads, but he had quite an infectious laugh. I just remember. He
looked the same, didn't he?
Yeah.
He looked the same from 50 to 80. He had white hair and a beard when I knew him. That was what it was nice seeing pictures of him as a young man at his funeral, because
Yeah.
I barely recognised him. By the time we knew him, he was, Silver Fox.
Yeah, I actually I found a video of him the other day. I'll edit it and post it on Facebook. But I got a picture of Micky Byrne. A video of Mick maybe 30 years ago shooting a jump shot. You remember his little jump shot? He used to push it all the way up.
Yeah.
I got a picture of that in it going in. Big smile on his face as he's running back. I can't remember what that team was called. What was that team called? The Old Boys.
Embers?
Is it the Embers?
Is it that? Or Senals?
The Senals, that was it.
Yeah.
The Portsmouth Senals. Yeah, I got a shot I got a video clip.
Nice.
So I'll edit that and put it on there.
Yeah.
Mark, your lasting memories of Mick?
He was himself. He was not apologetic about being himself, and he was hard but fair with things. And I think that is, you know, to echo Steve, is I'm grateful to have met him and had the experience with you guys, not as much as you guys did, but that toughness that he brought to the table. And you could walk into that, and even if you weren't playing that evening, you'd walk in, you'd see him. You knew what you were going to get. You knew what he was going to bring to the game that was going on, even if you weren't part of it. And that always will stick with me, because it just, you know, we all try to be something and we're not sometimes. And we all try to, I won't say sometimes take the easy way out, but he really just pushed into that hole. You just got to work hard for it. And yeah, he's just a legend.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last thing I'd probably say with regarding Mick was, you know, just his, it was just, I think, like what I said to you when the Portsmouth Force had all the tryouts and all the kids and stuff, this is Mick's legacy. None of this happens without Mick.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, you know, it was just, you know, just a pleasure to have known him and had all the experiences and memories that I've had with him. You know, some of them I'll smile at to the rest of my days. So I hope I get this right. Is it that one? But Micky Byrne, we salute you. So on that note, the one of the main things or themes that we were going to put in this in the show was this, I guess, wider topic. I don't know. We should have a proper name for it.
Yeah.
But this is where we're going to throw a story. Actually, I haven't really told it to Mark either, but I got a story for you, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. So we're going back to the 90s for this. Chicago Bulls. There is a Chicago Bulls fan called, I'm not sure how to pronounce his surname. It's Don, I want to say Calhoun, but I almost want to say Calhoun instead. Don Calhoun. And he shoots a $1 million shot, a $1 million shot, full court from free throw, all the way down the end.
Yeah.
And the Chicago Bulls don't pay him.
Really?
They didn't pay him. Kind of. So they don't pay him. How would you feel if you shot for $1 million and they went, no, we're not paying you?
I'll be trying to find a really good lawyer.
Especially in America.
Well,
not that they're famous for litigious things at all.
Why didn't they pay? I've seen the clip and all the players go nuts, don't they? And Jordan's hugging him and...
Well, there's a contract. I'm assuming people signed before this, and you can't have played any kind of basketball for 5 years.
Yeah.
And when this guy Don got picked, he said, I played basketball 3 years ago. I mean, we're talking like local league level. I played basketball 3 years ago. And they went, don't worry about it. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And he signed, but he was open and said it. He hits the shot. I don't think Chicago pay. I think it's an insurance company that pay.
Yeah.
So when it goes to the insurance company, they go, no, you played 3 years ago. We're not paying.
Are you saying an insurance company tried to wriggle out of paying someone?
Shock.
Wow.
Well, what happened is he is at another game, or he's in the early parts of like where players come in, and Jordan sees him. Michael Jordan sees him, and he recognizes him and said, "Oh, let me come and say hello. Get him to come and say hello to me." And he tells Jordan, I didn't get $1 million. And it's Jordan who then goes and talks to the other players and goes and talks to management. And then Chicago paid him.
Oh, wow.
And they paid him $50,000 per year for the next 20 years.
Nice.
So it wasn't a $1 million. They even walked off the court with a £1 million check.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'll still be happy with $50,000 a year for 20 years.
What a great story, though. Well, that's great, isn't it?
Can you imagine that? You just hit that shot and you think, yes, that's it. Done.
Mortgage gone.
Hang my feet up. Done. Beach.
Dying off of that forever.
I wonder if he paid anything that night.
It's not enough to buy a stadium, though.
No, not yet. But if you hit that shot...
You might be able to buy Frank Community Centre.
If you hit that shot, you're having a good night that night, aren't you?
For sure.
I wonder if he's paying for it.
Oh, you're not remembering that night. That night is a blur.
But are you going to have 10 grand on a credit card or something going, oh, wow, I'm not getting paid now?
It's the next day when you'd wake up and think, did that happen? Is that real? And then,
He javelins it as well, doesn't he? Have you seen it?
I've seen it, yeah. I can't remember how he shoots it, but yeah.
It's not dissimilar to the Simon Foot 3-point, one end of the court to the other.
Wow. You know what? We should talk about that on another episode.
Let's do it.
We were saying that we should bring Steve back at some point and do a whole episode just on the Portsmouth Fury.
Depends how comfortable we've made him feel today.
We'll
He looks
find out.
reasonably comfortable.
If he comes back, we know he's happy.
Wow.
But well, Mark, there's one last part of the show that I know we've just invented.
Okay.
So just to describe to people here that...
Name that kestrel.
Let's stop talking about the solent kestrels. Stop talking about them. You know what?
It just gets you angry. It's so funny.
I might start calling them the Southampton kestrels. Because Solent, when we talk Solent City, that's Solent and Portsmouth.
Hello, rabbit hole.
Yeah. Portsmouth have got its own representation in National League now. We don't need... It's the Southampton kestrels.
Hello, rabbit hole.
Anyway, so in Mark's studio here, he's got a basketball ring.
Yep.
On the side, one of those little ones when you were a little kid where you used to dunk it. So we were going to get our guests to take how many shots, Mark? 2, 3 shots?
I think we should be generous.
2 shots. So Steve, would you be the honour of taking shots?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Do it.
I'll do the commentating, yeah?
You do the commentating. I'm going to set it up.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have got Steve Ware taking on the challenge of shooting on this child's basketball ring. He's standing up and looking extremely, extremely confident. He's got the balls in hand. The only problem from where I'm sitting, I can't tell if it goes in. Even if I... Mark, I tell you what. Well, I'd say by the window. So that's probably going to be... That's 20 feet away. So, Mark, you're going to have to let me know if this goes in. Steve Ware. Let's go. So, Steve's looking very... It's gone up. Airball. Steve's taking a few dribbles this time. It's going up. Oh! What was that? Off the rim. Off the luck. One for luck. Let's say if it hits the rim, they get a third shot. Is Steve going to be the first guest to score on our basket? Oh! Oh! Oh my God! It went in! Wow. Steve, how do you feel?
Yeah, that was... I didn't think you were going to make that one.
Well,
especially after
I'm
that
glad you
airball.
gave me the bonus shot. I needed it.
Wow, Steve gets
First
the
two,
bonus
you just
shot.
got to warm up. Yeah, you got to get your range. And
Yeah.
There was no
it's a
warmth
different
in
ball.
that
It's
first
a
one. That was an
different-
airball.
Yeah, there's the window's open. You got to make sure you close that window when you get other guests in.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that what it was? Yeah.
Keep both
Are
those
you sure
windows
your
closed.
injured elbow didn't?
No. There was a strong breeze.
And he's got an injured elbow.
Got an injured elbow as well.
I'm not even going to mention that. That's what kind of pro I am.
He fell in the bathtub reaching for the soap, apparently.
Too much.
Yeah, well, let's wrap it up. So thank you very much, Steve, for coming
Yeah,
down.
thanks, Steve.
My pleasure. Thanks.
And we've got some more people coming up, Paul, I believe.
Yeah, so on our next episode, we got Alex Grant, played for the Portsmouth Force in National League this year. Absolute solid player, big guy. I'll put this in because I know you want to hear it. He did play for the Solent Kestrels as well. So he was an absolute fundamental, piece of Portsmouth Force coming season. And he's potentially going to go and play in Europe, but there's this tiny chance he might stay and play in.
Are we going to woo him?
In Portsmouth? Hey, we got to get biscuits. Get some prime bottles, whatever we need to do.
Biscuits on my kryptonite. I can't have them around.
Well, we need to see if we can persuade him to stay in Portsmouth.
I'll be like a dog with a bone.
Don't let him out of the studio till he signs.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just say you're not leaving. You're not leaving until the season starts.
Let's just make a contract and then say he has to sign it.
Yes. Right. Let's get a contract.
We're going to make
ready for Alex.
Alex, don't listen to this before you come and see us. But again, thank you so much, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And listen to more of our episodes. So wherever you are and wherever you're listening, thank you so much.
See you later.
Ciao for now.